Iran has declared 5 days of mourning after its president and foreign minister died in a helicopter crash Sunday.
In world news tonight, the president of Iran is dead, along with the country's foreign minister.
The sudden and shocking death of Iran's controversial president sent goosebumps through the global community. But it was his final words, captured on camera for the world to hear, that truly left people unsettled. In the waning moments before his untimely end, President Ebrahim Raisi delivered a speech that, for many, seemed to foreshadow his own mortality. What exactly did President Raisi know? And did his enemies decide that the price of silencing him was one they were willing to pay? The truth, it seems, has become shrouded in mystery, a puzzle with deadly consequences. The crash. On that cloudy morning of May 19, 2024, an Iranian Air Force helicopter carrying a contingent of the nation's top political and military leaders encountered a catastrophic failure during a routine transport flight. This particular aircraft, which was part of a 3-helicopter convoy, was en route from the Giz-Galasi Dam to the city of Tabriz when the disaster struck. As the helicopter flew over the remote village of Uzi in East Azerbaijan province, a sudden mechanical malfunction caused the aircraft to lose control and plummet violently to the ground. Eyewitnesses shared that the stricken helicopter spun out of the sky, slamming into the rocky terrain below in a devastating crash. Tragically, all 8 individuals aboard were killed instantly. Among the victims were President Ebrahim Raisi, the head of state and commander-in-chief, Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian, the nation's top diplomat, Malik Rahmati, the Governor-General of East Azerbaijan, and Mohammad Ali Hashem, the representative of the supreme leader in the region. Also, the head of the president's security detail and 3 highly experienced Air Force pilots were part of the journey. This loss of so many prominent leaders in a single catastrophic event sent shockwaves through Iran and the global community. It left a gaping power vacuum at the highest levels of the Iranian government and military, sparking concerns about political instability and the potential for dangerous power struggles in the aftermath. On the day of the crash, President Ebrahim Raisi, along with a delegation of the nation's top officials, had set off on a routine trip to inaugurate several key infrastructure projects near the country's border with Azerbaijan. Unknown to the travelers, ominous weather conditions had been forecast for the region, with the Iran Meteorological Organization issuing an orange alert for the area. As the helicopters flew over the remote Dismar forest, disaster struck. 30 minutes into the flight, the pilot leading the convoy radioed the other aircraft, instructing them to increase altitude to avoid a nearby cloud. But mere seconds later, Raisi's helicopter inexplicably vanished from the skies, leaving the other pilots stunned and confused. Desperate attempts were made to establish contact with the missing aircraft, but to no avail. The pilots of the remaining helicopters circled the area, searching frantically for any sign of the missing helicopter, but the thick cloud cover and rugged terrain made it impossible to locate the downed aircraft. After nearly an hour of fruitless searching, the devastating news reached the other members of the delegation. Raisi's helicopter had crashed, killing all on board. The heartbreaking realization that the president, along with so many other esteemed leaders, had perished in the accident sent shockwaves through the government and the nation. In the agonizing hours that followed, rescuers desperately tried to reach the crash site, but were hampered by the remote location and treacherous conditions. Tragically, the lone survivor, Mohammad Ali Hashem, succumbed to his injuries before help could arrive, leaving no one to bear witness to the final moments of the doomed flight. The loss of so many prominent figures in a single catastrophic event left Iran reeling. The nation was plunged into a deep state of mourning as it grappled with the unfathomable tragedy and the profound implications for the country's future. The presidents of the 2 countries, Ilham Aliyev and Ebrahim Raisi, gathered to celebrate a new hydropower project. Aliyev spoke confidently, saying their unity and friendship was unbreakable. Little did he know, tragedy was about to strike. Just hours after the meeting, the helicopter carrying Raisi and others crashed. The sudden death of the Iranian president shook the region. But despite this shocking event, experts say it won't significantly impact the course of Iran-Azerbaijan relations. The reason is that these 2 countries have a strong mutual interest in improving ties, driven by trade and economic goals. The Araz River project was just one part of this growing partnership. Aliyev described ambitious plans to create a green energy zone along the border, harnessing wind, water, and solar power. This, he said, would benefit the entire region. However, the meeting also revealed tensions simmering beneath the surface. Raisi hinted at Iran's concerns over Azerbaijan's close ties with Israel, a longtime rival of Tehran. Aliyev made no indication he would downgrade this strategic relationship. Azerbaijan seems determined to preserve its autonomy, using its pivotal position to balance the interests of global and regional powers. Even Turkey, its closest ally, has been met with Azerbaijani resistance at times. For now, Iran appears willing to tolerate this geopolitical balancing act, as it pursues the goal of developing the critical north-south trade corridor. The death of Raisi may cause turmoil in Tehran, but is not expected to alter this pragmatic approach towards Azerbaijan. Rescue. The tragic news quickly spread across the country on that fateful May afternoon. At 4 p.m., the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting and Interior Minister Ahmad Vahidi announced that the aircraft had experienced a hard landing due to bad weather and heavy fog in the remote Varzakhan region. Immediately, the Iranian military swung into action, with Major General Mohammad Bagheri, the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, ordering all branches to deploy their full resources for the rescue operation. However, the harsh conditions in the mountainous terrain made the search efforts extremely challenging, with thick fog hampering visibility and access to the crash site. As the nation held its breath, reports showed that rescue teams were expected to reach the location by 8 p.m. Finally, just after 8:30 p.m., the Iranian forces confirmed they were nearing the crash site. Dozens of rescue teams from the Red Crescent Society, along with drones, had been dispatched to scour the rugged landscape. Seeing the gravity of the situation, the international community quickly rallied to offer assistance. The European Union activated its emergency satellite mapping service at Iran's request, drawing criticism from some who saw it as too sympathetic to the Iranian regime. Neighboring countries like Armenia, Azerbaijan, Iraq, Qatar, Turkey, and Russia also pledged to help with the search and rescue efforts. Russia, in particular, sent 2 airplanes, search and rescue helicopters, and around 50 personnel to aid the mission. Meanwhile, the United States, despite a rare request for help from Iran, declined to provide assistance, citing largely logistical reasons. As the search continued through the night, Iran requested a night vision helicopter from Turkey to aid the efforts. Coordinates from a Turkish drone showed the crash site located on a steep mountain slope, about 12 miles south of the Iran-Azerbaijan border. However, Iran later disputed the claim, stating that its own drones had discovered the location. Finally, a few hours after the initial crash, Iranian media reported that the helicopter had been found, with no signs of life at the scene. The aircraft had burned completely upon impact, which was situated at an altitude of over 7,200 feet. On the following day, search operations concluded with the recovery of the bodies, which were then transported to the city of Tabriz. Many of the victims were found in a charred condition, but thankfully did not require extensive forensic identification. Meanwhile, Turkey's Transport Minister Abdulkadir Uralolu, whose country oversees emergency response in the region, revealed a concerning detail. He said they had not detected any signal from the helicopter upon hearing news of its crash. This suggested that the aircraft either did not have its signal system turned on or did not have such a system installed at all. Just a few days later, on May 23rd, the Iranian military released a preliminary report on their investigation. The findings were sobering. The report stated that the helicopter had caught fire after hitting an elevated area. Crucially, the military also said they had not found any evidence of foul play or suspicious activity leading to the crash. As the military continued its probe, the nation remained in a state of mourning, grappling with the immense implications of this calamitous event. The path forward would not be an easy one, but Iran was determined to honor the memory of those lost by getting to the bottom of this tragedy. Other mechanical controversies. The investigation into the tragic helicopter crash that claimed the life of Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi uncovered some troubling details about the conditions surrounding the accident. As mentioned before, the convoy of 3 helicopters was flying back from the Azerbaijani border when they encountered dense cloud cover over the mountainous terrain. This presented a significant challenge for the pilots. The lead helicopter, a Bell 212, was equipped with weather radar, a critical tool for navigating treacherous conditions. Typically, this lead aircraft would have been in communication with the other pilots, providing guidance on how to safely traverse the cloud cover. However, for reasons that remain unclear, there is no evidence that the lead pilot was in contact with the other helicopters. This breakdown in communication appears to have been a crucial factor in the disaster. The middle helicopter, carrying President Raisi and his entourage, was also a Bell 212, but lacked the weather radar capabilities of the lead craft. Without that vital information, the pilot was forced to make critical decisions about altitude and navigation on the fly. Tragically, the pilot was unable to gain enough altitude to clear the surrounding mountains in time. The helicopter crashed directly into the mountainside, likely due to a miscalculation of the rapidly changing terrain and weather conditions. As Iran mourns the loss of its president, these unanswered questions about the environmental factors at play serve as a stark reminder of the risks inherent in high-stakes air travel. The flip side of the story: Ebrahim Raisi, the former president of Iran, earned the notorious nickname Butcher of Tehran due to his severe crackdown on political dissidents and minorities during his tenure as a senior judiciary official in the 1980s and 1990s. After the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran, Raisi quickly rose through the ranks, becoming the deputy prosecutor of the Revolutionary Court by the time the Iran-Iraq War ended in 1988. During this time, he was part of a 4-member death commission that oversaw the execution of thousands of political prisoners, including communists and members of the People's Mojahedin Organization of Iran. The then supreme leader Ayatollah Khomeini had issued a fatwa, religious decree, ordering the execution of these enemies of God. According to estimates, at least 30,000 people were killed across Iran, with most trials lasting just minutes before sentences were pronounced. Beyond the 1988 killings, Raisi's career has been marked by the prosecution of religious minorities, brutal crackdowns on student protests in 1999 and 2009, and the suppression of widespread anti-government demonstrations in 2017. His tenure as a senior judiciary official and eventual president solidified his reputation as a hardliner, willing to use extreme measures to silence dissent and maintain the Islamic Republic's grip on power. In 1988, shortly after the end of the Iran-Iraq War, the supreme leader of Iran at the time, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, issued a fatwa ordering the execution of all political prisoners, including communists and enemies of God. Raisi was part of a 4-member death commission that oversaw these mass executions. According to various estimates, at least 30,000 people were killed across Iran, with the United States Institute of Peace estimating the number to be between 4,000 to 5,000. Most of these executions were carried out swiftly, often within minutes of the trial's beginning, violating principles of due process and the rule of law. Beyond the 1988 executions, Raisi also gained a reputation for ruthlessly prosecuting religious minorities, such as the Baha'is, as well as brutally cracking down on student protests in 1999 and the Green Movement protests in 2009. As president from 2021 until his recent death, he continued to oversee the suppression of dissent, with reports of hundreds of protesters killed during the 2022 Mahsa Amini protests. His death may close one chapter, but the scars he has left on the nation's psyche will linger for generations to come. Domestic reaction. The aftermath of Raisi's passing, it's a real tapestry of emotions, woven with the threads of both mourning and celebration. Let's head on straight and see what's really hidden. Before the news was even confirmed, the people of Iran went into a frenzy. Prayers were held across the country, broadcast live on state television, as the nation held its collective breath. But while some were on their knees in somber reflection, others were taking to the streets in a decidedly different manner. Videos began to surface on social media, showing Iranians setting off celebratory fireworks, dancing, and even honking their car horns in solidarity with those reveling in Raisi's demise. It was a stark contrast to the official mourning that was to come, and the images that emerged were really heartbreaking. Scenes of the very people Raisi had cracked down upon during the Mahsa Amini protests, killed and injured, their suffering now a testament to his legacy. The authorities in Tehran were having none of it, though, warning that anyone daring to show public happiness over Raisi's death would be swiftly prosecuted. But when Khamenei himself declared 5 days of national mourning, the nation was expected to fall in line. Hundreds gathered in Vali-e-Asr Square, their grief palpable, as they paid their respects to the fallen leader. And at a meeting of the Assembly of Experts, a flower-ringed portrait of Raisi sat solemnly in his vacant seat, a haunting reminder of the void he had left behind. Yet, even in the midst of this official mourning, the voices of dissent could not be silenced. Former Foreign Minister Javad Zarif pointed the finger at the United States, blaming their aviation embargo for the tragedy. And Maryam Rajavi, the exiled leader of the People's Mojahedin Organization, went so far as to predict that Raisi's death would trigger a series of crises within the regime's leadership. Meanwhile, the Iranian diaspora was a house divided, some celebrating joyfully, while others were expressing their continued dissatisfaction with the government Raisi had represented. Suspicion on Israel. Israel has reportedly been cashing in big time by selling drones and other weapons to help decimate the Armenian fighters in the Nagorno-Karabakh region. And get this, Iran has been backing the Armenians all the way, so the tensions between these two countries are through the roof. According to analyst Griffin, this simmering conflict is a sweet deal for the Israeli arms industry. Not to mention, there's that whole ancient hatred thing going on between Israel and Iran. And let's not forget, Israel has a history of taking out Iranian officials and scientists. So naturally, people are wondering if they had a hand in the helicopter crash that killed Iran's President Raisi. Now, to be fair, there's no solid evidence linking Israel to that particular incident, and they're keeping mum about it. But in the high-stakes world of geopolitics, you can bet there's more to this story than meets the eye. This whole situation is rife with intrigue and the potential for things to really heat up. The funeral. When President Ebrahim Raisi leaders passed away, the country went into full-on mourning mode. The government pulled out all the stops, shutting down cultural events and even closing government offices and businesses to mark this solemn occasion. The streets of Tabriz were flooded with tens of thousands of people, all gathered to pay their respects as the remains of the victims were carried through the city. But the real show was yet to come. The bodies were then transported to Tehran, where the who's who of the Middle East showed up to mourn. We're talking leaders from Hamas, Afghanistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Egypt, Iraq, Pakistan, Qatar, and Tunisia, along with delegations from over 60 other countries, and the chants of "Death to America" that echoed through the streets of Tehran. Bone-chilling. Tens of thousands of mourners followed the procession down the city's main boulevard, their voices united in a chorus of defiance. But perhaps the most striking detail was the absence of Iran's own former presidents. Not a single one of them was spotted at the event, leaving the spotlight solely on the current regime. The grand finale took place in Mashhad, where Raisi was laid to rest at the Imam Reza shrine. Hundreds of thousands turned out to bid him farewell, a testament to the power and influence he wielded in life. Yet, even in death, Raisi's funeral paled in comparison to that of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps General, Qasem Soleimani, just a few years prior. This was a funeral fit for a leader, but one that couldn't quite match the outpouring of grief and adoration seen for his fallen comrade. The world has witnessed a true spectacle of power, politics, and mourning in Iran. But as the dust settles, one can't help but wonder what's next for this nation, where even the final farewell is a stage for the struggle of ideologies. Foreign reactions. The international community really expressed their concerns and feelings over the death of President Raisi. The response was with a mix of condolences and complex reactions. Well wishes and offers of support poured in from a number of world leaders, including the presidents of Azerbaijan, Cuba, the Maldives, and Pakistan, as well as the prime ministers of India and Turkey. The United Nations Secretary General and the governments of Iraq, Afghanistan, Jordan, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Russia, and Saudi Arabia also extended their sympathies. In the days that followed, several countries declared periods of national mourning, including Bangladesh, Cuba, India, Lebanon, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Syria, Tajikistan, Thailand, and Turkey. The United Nations Security Council even held a minute of silence to honor the late president. Notably, Iran's regional allies and proxies also expressed their condolences. The Houthi government in Yemen, Hamas, and Hezbollah all mourned Raisi's passing, describing him as a supporter and protector of their causes. However, the reactions were not universally positive. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed hope that a future Iranian government would work towards regional stability and pacification. Meanwhile, the Lithuanian Foreign Minister and British Security Minister refused to offer condolences, citing Iran's human rights abuses and support for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The United States also distanced itself, with the Secretary of Defense denying any United States involvement in the crash. Israel, too, provided a similar response, with one official stating bluntly, "It wasn't us." Even at the United Nations, the United States, and several European countries boycotted a tribute ceremony for Raisi, with over 100 protesters gathering outside to voice their opposition. Amnesty International, in a poignant statement, reminded the world that Raisi's death must not deny victims of his human rights abuses their right to accountability. As the dust settles, it becomes clear that Raisi's legacy remains deeply divisive, with the international community grappling with a range of emotions and perspectives on his passing and its implications for the future of Iran and the region. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.